Okay, 10.3. So there's only one formula for this lesson, so it's going to be pretty simple. However, kind of the same as the last lesson, you will have to get used to kind of working with it and moving things around in it. Don't always assume you're just going to plug in and you're good to go. So read the questions carefully. But for right now in the Edpuzzle, all we're going to be doing is just focusing on the basic use of the formula. So our last 3D figure we're working with here is a sphere. It's a ball. And it's kind of a little bit different formula here. It's on your formula sheet. The volume is 4/3 times pi times r to the third. And again, we call that r cubed. So when we're working this, you gotta be careful that you don't accidentally press the square button. You have to go to the third. So I will show you guys how to do this on the calculator because it's a little bit different if you've been just using the square button. Let's go ahead and let's look at number 1. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy the formula. It does obviously say sphere, but we know, looking at that picture, this is a sphere. So I have 4/3 pi r to the third. Be careful with that to the third. Now again, how all these formulas work when we're dealing with a circular figure is the radius is what's most important to us. So be mindful if they give you the radius or not. Is this thing the radius? No, this is the diameter, right? Again, things that any adult should know. You should know what a diameter and a radius is, and if you get to be an adult and you don't, it's concerning. So we need the radius. So think for a second, if that's the diameter, what would our radius be? And you might need to go to the calculator to do it. We should know a diameter versus a radius. How do we find that? Well, the radius is half of the diameter, and so my radius is going to be half of 6.8. So again, you might need to do this in the calculator, but it is just 3.4, half of 6, half of 8. So this is what I'm going to be using my formula here. So because it says find the volume, I have V equals, because I'm finding the volume, I'm going to do 4/3 times, remember we're using the pi symbol now, and then I have r to the third. So I have 3.4 to the third. So just how to plug this in the calculator. Let me see if I can pull up the calculator really quickly here. Okay, so we have 4/3. So I've got my fraction button. 4/3 times, again, to get pi, we hit shift, and then the exp down here that gets that little pi. We need to start using that instead of 3.14. Times, I need 3.4 to the third. So I can just type, I don't need to put this in parentheses, 3.4. Now to go to the third, I can't hit my little square button because that only gives me a square. Just to the right of it, there's this little arrow here. We call it a caret. It looks kind of like a carrot. It's pointy. Pointing up for your exponent. So I hit that, and notice a little box pops up where my exponent would go. So because I want an exponent of 3, then I hit 3. So if you have an exponent that's not 2, you use that button instead. Especially in higher level math, you might have exponents that are 10 or 50 or 100. So we just use that button. And I hit enter. Now remember that it's going to give it to you in terms of pi because this is the most exact answer, but we want to know what it actually is. So we hit the fraction to decimal button. We get 164.63. I've got 164.63, which we know is going to round to just 154.6. And this is in inches to the third cubed. Okay, so simple again, use the formula. You just have to make sure, am I actually given the radius? If not, find the radius and use that instead. Let's go ahead and look at the next question. So it says find the volume of the sphere. So again, I'm using this formula for volume of the sphere. To the third, again, careful with that. Okay, and it does say find the volume, and so this will be V equals because we're trying to find V. We have to keep that in mind. Sometimes we know the volume, and we've already seen that. So I have 4/3. I've got pi. Now this number here, again, we just got to think for just a little bit, is that the radius? That is the radius, right? That is halfway through, so I get to use 4 now. I don't need to divide it by 2, but I should not be dividing it by 2. It's only if they give you the full way through, we need the radius. So take a second and make sure you remember how to plug this in the calculator. All of this is just good to go. There's no x's in all of this. When there's no x's or variables, you just go straight to the calculator. So what does that give us? I'm actually going to plug myself here. Actually, I'm going to go up here and fix it, see if I can. Delete. 4, right? Okay, so we should get 268.08, 268.08, and 8 is what I'm thinking about. 8 is closer to 10 than it is to 0. So 268.1 millimeters cubed. I couldn't say that there, sorry. Millimeters to the third. Okay, so for right now, again, the purpose of this Edpuzzle was just to practice using that formula to make sure you understand that we need the radius, not the diameter, and how to use those buttons on the calculator. We'll do a couple more problems together tomorrow that, again, use the formula in a slightly different way, so be careful.